Okay, so it's 8:30. I'm sure Alice will be on soon. Um, I don't really know much, obviously. Kind of we're all on the same page here, I feel like. Future meetings, I have a feeling with all of our schedules, we're gonna have to kind of figure out that week, like kind of how we did this week, if that works for everyone else. Um, yeah, it said to do introductions, but I think we all know each other and like we can just say our names or whatever before we start um like our parts, I guess. Um, yeah, so I guess I'll just start. I'm assuming everyone can hear me. Okay, great. So, I read, oh, also, like I'm sure everyone saw the like assignment, I guess. So we just have to like take notes and write about it. But so I read iGen and it's written by Dr. Jean M. Twang. And the purpose of this section, I just feel like, was to kind of explain how our generation kind of relies on the media a lot. And that's pretty much what this part of the book talked about. And it was kind of repetitive at times. And it just kind of talks about how we as like a generation, we don't have as much face-to-face interaction as we did or as like previous generations had. And one of the main things like was talked about was like in high school, especially like partying, like hanging out with friends. Um, this part was kind of interesting to me just because like my high school experience, I still felt like I went out a bunch with friends, like was with friends every weekend, and those sorts of things. And kind of like the biggest thing that I took away from this section was like something that like when you go to your friend's house and like you just text them like I'm here and you don't actually like go up to the door and like knock on the door or whatever. That was talked about a few times. And then in terms of like this section of the book and like the course outcomes, I think it kind of aligns with outcome number two, which is just to like understand human cultures and the natural world because this kind of is our world now. We all have cell phones, we all have computers, we all have TVs, all that sorts of stuff. And then I know we haven't really learned like we're still kind of new, like beginning the course, but this section, like in terms of what we're learning about or talking about, I guess, um, kind of the assignment, how we had to like watch the video about disagreeing respectfully. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that I was reading just didn't feel accurate to me, kind of like I already touched on, because I grew up in the same generation as everyone else. I got a phone in sixth grade, but I still went out a lot with my friends. So did things like went to the mall, went to the movies, all those sorts of things. Um, and obviously I still do. I know we all do. Um, that's really kind of everything that I have. Oh, I guess it is. I'm Reese, by the way. I mean, I know everyone, but whoever wants to go next can go.
I can go next. Um, Hi, I'm Kanaloa. And Me and Alice, we had the new Jim Crow book. Um, and the author's purpose or thesis in the section that we kind of got was in the first chapter. The purpose is to show that the Declaration of Independence was mainly for white men and not for African Americans. It also all depended on the color of your skin. In the chapter, it also talked about different levels in society that also depended on your wealth. If you have more money, you're a higher in social status. The less money, you are lower in social status. One of the theses that we got from this is that the US justice system is corrupt and it is used for racial control. People are not treated fairly due to their skin color. Um, and kind of how does this section fit into this course? Um, Something that we said was that the section fits into this course because in the first two chapters that I read, it talks about how the color of your skin affects what you can do in society. what laws were passed to prohibit colored people from having the same opportunities as whites. A course outcome that I can connect to this book is give an example of how systems of social stratification, class, race, and ethnicity, gender, sexuality, and age organize the distribution of social advantages and disadvantages. The reason for this is because with the Jim Crow laws, it was basically legal forced segregation, regarded almost as worse than slavery. Another course outcome that I could connect to the book is describe the relationship between social structure and individual behavior. The reason for this is because colored people were very poor and most places didn't hire colored people. So they had to work at prisons where they got lucky even if they got paid. Also, they couldn't vote unless they had money to pay the taxes that were required. Um, what course content have we covered this far that connects the issues? The course content that we covered had to do with disagreeing productively. That's something that I took away. I think that if white people disagree productively with colored people to try and find common ground and what is right and socially fair, then there wouldn't be any segregation. It wouldn't exist. And in this course, we also have gone over social inequality, a condition in which members of society have differing amounts of wealth, prestige, or power. This is a major issue that is present in chapters 1 and 2. I'm all done. Thank you.
I'll go next. My name's Jace. The book that I read was Crazy Like Us. So the author's purpose for the first part of the book that I read was he really went into detail about a case study that he performed, or that a guy performed on anorexia in Hong Kong. He states that at the beginning, it was extremely hard to find people dealing with this disease, but he eventually found a few people who stated that they had the problem of anorexia, and they would try to do the things necessary to fix it. They knew they had a problem, and they kept saying they had a problem, but they didn't know how to fix it in the right way, so they had to get help for it. They stated that it felt like they had some nausea and stomach disease, making it so that they weren't able to eat or wanting to eat. On November 24th, 1994, a photogenic schoolgirl collapsed and died on a busy Hong Kong street in the middle of rush hour. The cause of death appeared to be anorexia, a condition that most Hong Kongers had never heard of. News cameras caught the whole thing and they made it a big deal, and it kind of brought a panic nationally. This topic fits into the course outcome too, because anorexia is a big part of the culture in Hong Kong, and because of the foods they like to eat, like rice and stuff, because they don't really make you obese, so to say.
I can go next. I also had Crazy Like Us. Yeah, and like Jay said, the author interviewed a doctor who studied anorexia pretty very in depth in Hong Kong. And often the earlier forms of anorexia that he found were caused, like Jace was saying, like a feeling of nausea or not being able to eat, which was often caused because of some emotional damage or trauma. And the doctor actually kind of looked back in history to other times when not eating was more common. And so there was a time, I feel like in the 1600s, where fits of hysteria were pretty common. And so people would faint and not eat, and kind of have these symptoms that we don't see are very common today. And the doctor was able to see that during that time where anorexia spiked, people often, their behaviors were showing kind of what trauma was happening to the person, or it was a way of like expressing their hurt, I guess. And so in Hong Kong, as like media attraction, there was a girl who like died because of her anorexia, and that caused it to be brought throughout the media. And this brought more of the Western signs and symptoms that had already been diagnosed for anorexia. And so people then started having these more Western symptoms kind of to show their, I guess, yeah, a behavior to garner attention because of something like deeper that was happening. So yeah, like the Western like idea and diagnosis of anorexia clearly negatively affected people in Hong Kong. And yeah, I think the author's purpose was really just to highlight that and to also mention that anorexia was present in Hong Kong before a more Western diagnosis. I think this book connects to sociology in our course because sociology is like the study of humans and connection, and even in this chapter is easy to see how one style of thinking affected another culture and not necessarily a positive way. So yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, I can go next. So I read the iGen book. The author's purpose of this book was to see the difference between kids and teens now and the kids and teens 20 to 30 years ago. It shows the different levels of maturity and readiness for adulthood in the teens from then and now. The first 3 chapters of this book focused on the relevance of how technology and the internet has changed the way that children and teens interact with each other, their families, and society. Today, relationships aren't as personal as they used to be, and that people are adulting later in life. This book fits in with this course because it talks about the way in which society and today's youth are very different than the youth during the 1990s and even later. Kids are less likely to leave their house without their parents and are less likely to be home with a parent. Teens have grown less interested in going out and doing things that have consequences like alcohol, drugs, and sex. These things were a lot more relevant during the 1950s and so on, and they're not as relevant now, which may seem not true. But there is a lot of statistics and like studies shown in this book that show the like curves from then and now. This was not the case 30 years ago. Teens during I already read that. It is said that the biggest impact that can be applied to now is the use of technology and cell phones. This has caused the loss of personal relationships that happen in person. Many teens' friends nowadays are internet friends on video games and social media. What course content have we covered this far? This book uses the concept of social imagination in which the relationship of someone with society as a whole is impacted by a certain thing, and it also shows that it is different from then and now. And that is what I have.
Well, I don't, it's supposed to be 30 minutes, but like, I feel like we covered everything we need to, unless anyone else has anything that they want to say. Okay, well, um, Yeah, I don't know. I guess if no one else has anything, then I guess we'll just be done at 15 minutes and I can end the recording and send you guys the link so you can rewatch it for the notes or whatever. And then we just all have to turn the link in when we're done. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Reese, once we're done, like once you send us the link, so we're supposed to turn in the link with our notes too.
Yeah, we all turn in the links. Like I will have the link. I have to like post it on YouTube or whatever. And then I'll email you guys that link. And then you turn in your notes and your link by next Friday.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. But if that's all, then we don't have to be on here any longer. All right. We'll figure out the next meeting whenever. Bye, everyone.